So that's like all great, you know. Me talking up in the screen and saying like, oh, Headspace works, like this is what the app is about. But I thought it'd be also important and beneficial for you guys if I shared a personal story too of how Headspace has benefited my life. So my story begins in high school, senior year, and high school for everyone I'm sure is kind of a time of extremes. One day you're really high, like you're an amazing time, then you're really low. It's never constant, right? And I was really happy back home. I'm from Mexico, but I moved to Costa Rica when I was 6. And I grew up there and I had my friends there, and of course I had my heartbreaks, of course I had my really lows, but I also had my really highs. And so, but I was trying to figure out who I was, which I think a lot of high schoolers are trying to do that, especially applying to colleges and stuff. And so I chose to go to BC, and in BC, I found a lot of joy. I found my place, I found people who cared about me, I found new experiences, and of course there were some really hard times. That first winter, I'll never forget it, but I had people around me. I had people who cared about me. I had people that understood who I was, or at least who I was trying to be. I partied every weekend, I got high, I did all the things a college freshman does, and it was really fun. When I got drunk, it was never sad. Like, you know, there's sad drunks and there's happy drunks and there's angry drunks. I was never an angry or sad drunk. I was always a happy drunk who danced, who sang and mariachi songs, and yeah, and so it was a really wonderful year. And at the end of the year, I had developed a relationship with a girl, and I was really excited about that relationship because I hadn't dated really anyone in a year and a half, simply because my previous girlfriend had been verbally abusive, and that had really taken a toll in my trust in the relationships. I didn't really want to deal with that. And so I met this girl, it was amazing, we got along very well, and we had the same taste in a lot of things, and when summer was coming, so we were like, okay, we're gonna stay together and see what happens in sophomore year. And so summer came along, and halfway through the summer, one of my closest friends, one of my oldest friends, passed away in an accident in Switzerland because of a drunk driver. And his name is Felipe, and was Felipe, and you can see him there. We grew up together. He was the first friend I ever made in Costa Rica. He was the first person that was there. And I remember getting the text from a friend like, Felipe's gone. And I'll never forget just sitting in the chair that I was sitting in for, it felt like hours, and having to tell my parents, who knew him very well, like, Felipe is dead, like he's gone, and the reaction they gave. And it didn't really hit me until I was in Felipe's funeral, next to his casket. Suddenly in front of Felipe's parents and his sister, and saying my condolences, and just terrible. And that's when I started to cry, and I didn't stop crying for what felt like a day, because my friend was gone. So that really hurt. And then we can go to the next slide. And then coming back from sophomore year to sophomore year, the relationship I was involved with didn't work out. And I was heartbroken, I felt betrayed, I felt so depressed, and like we all do when relationships we had high hopes for disappear in an instant. And it didn't help that I was in Coro, which I know all my friends were in lower, and I know a lot of people here we see like, oh, you're in Coro, like it wasn't that bad. Like, but for me it was, because I couldn't really sleep for that first month because of a rooming situation, and I was in the fourth floor in Roncalli, so it was really hot, and I was in a tiny room, and it also didn't help that I was failing 2 classes at that point, and I felt isolated from my friends because all my friends were in lower, and so I didn't go out the way I used to, and I felt distant and lonely and all these things. and drinking and getting high just made it all worse, right? Like I tried to escape the pain, the loneliness that I was feeling through alcohol, and I only got more lost. And now I was the angry drunk. Now I was the sad drunk, and so people started distancing themselves, and so that didn't really help. So I was like that for most of the first semester in sophomore year, looking to go back to the way it used to be. You know, we always want to go back to the way it used to be, to find peace again, and to kind of move on from all the pain that I was feeling, all the challenges that I was facing. And so I was blessed to have the opportunity to direct the culture show for OLA. OLA is the Organization of Latin American Affairs, and so every year they do a show about Latin American culture, and so I was the director of that show. And it was so wonderful, like being in my element, because it was through that experience that I discovered, like, oh, maybe I am meant for the arts, because I was studying marketing at the time, and I didn't really understand why I was studying marketing. I was like, oh, both my parents are accountants, so they're paying for my college. I should probably do something that's going to make money, and probably something so I can pay them back somehow. And so my passion with the arts, with filmmaking, with music, kind of like took a step down, and so I kind of let go of that. But this really reminded me that I really enjoyed it, that I was kind of good at it. And we sold out Rob Sham. My parents were there. Felipe's parents were there, because I dedicated the show to him. And the guy you see up there, his name is Fernando Lujan. So he grew up with us. He was a friend of Felipe. And so he studies at Berklee College of Music. And he came to he's an artist, so he came to the show and he performed a set for Felipe. And the film, I directed a film for the show for Felipe. And it was just this wonderful, the show is called A Land of Miracles, and the show itself was a miracle. I'll never forget standing at the end of the show, people laughing, people crying, people standing. It was at that moment I was like, okay, maybe life can get better. Maybe things are going the right way. Maybe there's hope, you know. And we can. And so in spring break, and so time passed, and I had a group of friends at the time who I was close with, and we decided to go to Puerto Rico. And in Puerto Rico, I was amazed at the island, because it was it was 6 months after the hurricane had struck also, but it was such a beautiful place. The people were so kind, they were warm. It felt like an island with no rules, where everyone followed the rules of being kind to each other. Everywhere you looked was beautiful. It was this amazing place, as you can see there. And I was having a really good time. And I had out of long story short, I had the opportunity to do service. I was offered the opportunity to do service by a local acquaintance I made in the island. And so I went to this area called Bayamon. And so in Bayamon, I was used to a type of community service experience where like it's guided, you know, like you go there, you make some food, like you interact with the people, but it's not like anything too extreme. And I think that's what we're all used to, like APA, stuff like that, you know. But we got there, and I wasn't with any of my friends. It was just me and another person that I had met in the island, who goes to Bentley University. And so we got there, and we found a war zone. We found people starving, we found people dying, we found people desperate for any help, because help wasn't coming anymore. We found desperation, we found so many terrible things, but we also found so much love, and so much care, and so much hope. And we went, the first step of the journey of this day was interacting with the community service center based in that area. And so we talked to the people, and Maria is that woman, you see, the leader, and she's the embodiment of love and happiness in this world, truly, because she's been through so much, and all she has, she gives back. And so, and talking to the locals too, elderly people, mostly talking about hearing their stories and singing with them and even dancing a bit with them. amidst like so much tragedy that they were feeling. And this was like the first step of the journey. I was so overwhelmed with emotion, thinking like, I complain about so many like little things, and these people have almost nothing, and they're here and they're smiling, and I was like, we were preparing the food to deliver to the survivors of the mountains of Bayamon. And so in the mountains, we found true destruction. We found true devastation. And I say we found, but it was there, regardless of whether we found it or not. It was there 6 months, 7 months after the hurricane had struck. And I just couldn't believe it, because I had just seen so much beauty in San Juan, which is the capital. And this was like 30 minutes away. So how could this be? And so this was really, really hard to be with and to meet the people in the mountains, because these were survivors, literally. They weren't, like, every day was a challenge for them. Every day was, will I make it to the next day? Because most of the young people, or like people who could leave the mountains, left, but they left a lot of people there. Actually, Maria told us, it was a caravan of 3 cars and like a group of people. Maria told us that the criminals had stayed and rebuilt or like cleared paths. So it was the criminals who had stayed and helped the community. So there were a lot of stories that there were a lot of people that I interacted with in the mountains, but one story that I want to share with you guys today, or I'll never forget, is Sophia's story. So we could. So Sophia is a woman you see there. Her house, as you can see, was completely destroyed by the hurricane, and every day since the hurricane had struck, for 6 months, she had put her white chair up to observe her house that her father had built like 100 years ago, with a dead dog lying next to her. And she was depressed. I had never seen like an elderly woman be depressed before, ever. And she reminded me of my grandma too. And so we get there, and we start talking to her, and she's like hurt that she won't, because she hasn't gone to church in a long time, because she can't move from the area because it's so devastated. And she's like, oh, I don't know what to do, like all these sins that I have. And I try to talk to her, and then what I say kind of works, and then we start laughing, and then she says, thank you. And I'm like, why are you thanking me for? Like, I'm just passing by, like and she's just like, thank you for coming. And in that moment, I was like, oh my God, that was a really intense moment in my life. It kind of changed everything for me, because it made me realize that life could end tomorrow. Literally, life could end tomorrow. There's no guarantee that it goes on forever, and in fact, it doesn't. But and that's kind of what meditation is, like fully being aware of the present. It doesn't matter if it's terrible or really wonderful, but it's just being aware of it makes for a more fulfilling life. And so after this experience, yeah, it was just me. You can see the look on my face, kind of just shocked, devastated. From that experience, actually, I had a PTSD from entering basically a natural disaster zone, a war zone. But I also had never felt more alive and more free. Because after that experience, the first thing I did was call my parents, call my friends, call my enemies, to tell them I love you, I'm sorry, and thank you. My parents we had like a really tough relationship for like a while, and I just like said like sorry for everything wrong that I had done, and thanked them for paying for my education, thanked them for so many things. And the next day, like I kid you not, and we can go to the next time, we had to go to the beach because we were still in spring break. right? We were still in that mindset. At least they were. I was in another level, another place. But I remember going to the beach, a very beautiful beach, and just sitting there. Not just sitting there and breathing. And like before Puerto Rico had even happened, I had started trying to meditate, but it had never worked. I never got into it because I was like, I don't know, it just didn't work. Or it didn't match with what I was going through, I guess. And so I remembered those some techniques that Headspace had taught me. And so I just sat there and tried to apply that, to breathe and to like try to understand what had happened. And it worked. I felt better after it. And that was my first day meditating. It's crazy. I'm on day 300 and something now. And I'm sharing this story not so you're intimidated, like, oh, I have to go through something so extreme that like that's the only way I'm going to get into meditation. Because no, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that for me, my journey since that day, since that moment with meditation, I could have chosen, I had two choices. I could have gone back to the alcohol and the drugs to numb what I'd gone through, to forget that I'd gone through therapy, through antidepressants, or I could try meditation. And I'm lucky to say that, therapy is important. I'm not hating on therapy. Therapy is essential for better mental health, but meditation kind of enhances it, almost. It's always there for you because you're always there for you. You don't need anything else but yourself to meditate. And so after that, things started to change. And of course, there's been really hard moments. There's been really intense moments. But by being aware of my present moment, by distancing myself from the thoughts, from fully investing myself in the story, I've been able to find a framework which helps me be myself, first of all, to be compassionate, to be more creative, to be less egotistical, to be more focused. My grades have thanked me for it. My relationships around me have thanked me for it. And these are just some examples of the things I've been involved in since that day. We started an organization to help the people that I had met in Bayamon, Puerto Rico, called the Puerto Rico Project. And because of that whole initiative, APA is now sending people to Puerto Rico next year. I won a writing contest to go to the Cannes Film Festival, Mexico beat Germany. That has nothing to do with me, but it was still really fun. I began working on sets. I shot a documentary. And I say I a lot, but it wasn't just me. It was the people around me. It was an awareness that the world is cruel, but it's also very beautiful. And that it can slip away at any moment. And then coming back to the breath, coming back to the present, changes everything. Because this is my journey so far. But it could be yours. It's in your phone, literally, like 10 minutes every day. And I also want to emphasize that every journey is different. It doesn't happen in a day, you know. For me, for my PTSD, for example, it took months of, mental training to let go of. For other issues that I was going through, it takes time. It's mindfulness practice because it's a practice. But it's another way to be one with your mind, right? And to understand yourself truly. And and so the next slide. And so they built her house back up, Sophia's house. And when I got this picture from Maria, oh my God, the emotion. Because like, at least she has a house now, you know? Like she has a roof. Because she had it for 6 months. This is just like one final example that in the beginning it could feel like this. It could feel when you start venting, like so many thoughts are rushing towards you and you don't know what to do with them. But eventually, it can be a little like this. A little more peaceful. A place where no one else can find you. Where you can be with yourself and when you can take a break from the craziness and hectic lifestyles we lead now. From a break from the phone, a break from trouble, it's just sit down and breathe. That's literally it. Sit down and breathe. And so and so it's there. It used to be $100 per year. Now it's $10 for students. And I'm not trying to like, oh, you have to do this, you have to try this. No, it's there if you want it. It's worked for me, and I just wanted to share my story of how it's worked for me. And maybe it might inspire you for you to start your journey today, you know? There's never a right time, there's never a wrong time, there's just the moment. So, thank you for coming. I know it's a busy time. And if you have any questions, let me know. I'll be around a bit after or right now. But yeah, thank you for listening. And hope to see you again soon. Any questions? No?
Thanks for sharing your story.
Yeah, no. It's the beginning. The goal is to eventually make sure that all of BC has access to this. Like if you come to BC, like you already have a Headspace subscription. Because it goes along with like the Jesuit values, you know, of the examine, of the examine of, I mean, Loyola, when he was in that room, like coming up with all these like writings and everything, he was praying, sure, but he was also meditating. When Jesus was in the desert, he was praying, but he was also meditating, another form of meditation. And more people should have access to that, regardless of whether, like it should be free, obviously, but because we're in a Western world, it's not always like that. But it's almost like that. I mean, $10 divided by 365 days, it's not too much. And yeah, so it's just the beginning. Every great journey begins with small steps. So thank you guys.